It would be naive to make a grand conclusion about the NBA season off of week one. As we know in sports, anything can happen to a team. People can be traded. Injuries can happen. Of course, we don't wish injuries upon anybody, but injuries can happen. You never know. It wouldn't be smart to base your entire season on week one of the NBA season. But going into week one of the NBA season, there was a lot of things that I needed to see. You had a lot of movement this offseason. We talk about Damian Lillard. We talk about Bradley Beal. We talk about Chris Paul. There was a lot of things that I needed to see week one. And while no, I'm not making any general claims, I'm not making any grandioso claims of how the season is going to go, what I am going to do is tell you guys about the things that I needed to see week one and how I feel about things that I saw. Let's first start with Damian Lillard. That was the major move that happened this offseason. Of course, Damian Lillard in a multiple team deal going to the Bucks. Now, since that's happened, I've talked about Damian Lillard ad nauseum about how this affects the Bucks, how this affects Damian Lillard, how this affects Giannis Antetokounmpo, how this affects Portland. I talked about the trade ad nauseum. In fact, I did pretty much a whole episode on damn near that trade alone. But what I wanted to see was exactly how Damian Lillard looks alongside Giannis Antetokounmpo. I knew that it was probably going to work because, like I said before, when you talk about Giannis, if you compare Giannis with any player in the NBA, any player, who would be the perfect pair for him? I said it would be Steph Curry. The way that Steph Curry can dominate with the ball, without the ball, the way that, of course, Steph Curry is the greatest shooter we've ever seen. And it just opens up a part of the floor that for Giannis that he hasn't really seen before. Now you can't really double and triple team Giannis Antetokounmpo because you have someone like Steph Curry. I think Steph Curry would have been the perfect pairing and fit alongside Giannis. Number 2 on that list was Damian Lillard. For all the things that I said about Steph, Damian Lillard is that on a lesser scale, not too much lesser, but a lesser scale than Steph. We know Damian Lillard's ability to hit shots. We know Damian Lillard's ability to hit threes. We know Damian Lillard's ability to attack a defense at all aspects of the game. So pairing them together, I just needed to see how it was going to look. I needed to see exactly how they were going to implement. Because, mind you, what people forget is the Bucks also have a new coach. So there was a lot of newness in Milwaukee that I just needed to see. And after seeing game one, they beat the Philadelphia 76ers, I think 118 to 117 or something like that, or 108 to 107. Everything that I needed to know was answered in that game. Everything that I've been talking about this entire time after the trade is exactly what we saw game one. Now, no, I'm not saying that this is going to permeate throughout the entire season, but what I needed to see was who was going to take a back seat. People talk about, when you hear that term, take a back seat, there's always a negative connotation to it. There's always a negative feeling when you say, oh, you have to take a back seat. But in sports, on a team, there's no way that you can have two alphas. No way. Let me say this. Let's just keep it to basketball. There's no way on a basketball court that you can have two dominant alphas. You can have two alphas, but you can't have two dominant alphas. And let me give you an example. There have been two perfect examples of this. The Miami Heat, when LeBron James went, and Dwayne Wade had to take a back seat. And the Golden State Warriors, when Kevin Durant came, Steph Curry had to take a back seat. Do we look at Steph Curry any differently? Or did Steph Curry's skills decrease because he took a back seat? No. He understands. You have to understand, what is the goal? When you bring someone on to a team, like a LeBron James, like a Kevin Durant, in this situation, like a Damian Lillard, what is the goal? The goal isn't just to win a bunch of games. The goal is to win a championship. And someone like Steph Curry understands, all right, the best way to win a championship, we can't take shots, we can't take opportunities away from Kevin Durant, because that in the long run is going to hurt us. Dwayne Wade understands, we know who LeBron James is. While I have roots here in Miami, and of course that people consider this quote unquote my team, I understand that if we want to get to where we need to go, LeBron James has to be the center of this. Steph Curry understands, if we need to get to where we want to go, Kevin Durant has to be the center of this. I needed to see who was going to take a back, if Giannis was able to take a back seat. Or was Dame able to take a back seat? Honestly, both of them, whoever's leading this car, is well capable. In game one, we saw it. I needed to see which one was going to take a back seat. And I know Giannis came out and said that this is Damian Lillard's team. I don't know about that, but I do know that Damian Lillard scored 39 points game one. Torched the Philadelphia 76ers. Just straight torched them. And Giannis, I think he had like 23 and 13 or something like that. This is going to work. Of course, barring any injury, knock on wood, I hope nobody gets injured. This is going to work. And the questions that I had, let me say it like this. There's a difference between compiling a bunch of good players and building a good team. You can build, well, let me say this. You can compile a bunch of good players, but that doesn't ultimately mean you have a good team. And the thing that it's like a two-way thing. Of course, management has to build the team, but players have to buy into what's going on. And as we saw game one, Giannis bought in. Damian Lillard bought in. Now, again, this is game one. You never know what's going to happen in the season. I'm going to stress that precipitously this episode. But, again, you know what? You know who Damian Lillard, another thing that I saw. You know what Damian Lillard's arrival to Milwaukee, you know who it affects the most? Chris Middleton. Since Chris Middleton has been in Milwaukee alongside Giannis, it has been well known that he is the only player, or he was the only player on that team that can consistently create his own shot off the dribble, jump shot. Now, we know Giannis is a great, north and south player. He's able to get to the rim. He's able to use his force, his aggressiveness, his body to get to the cup. So we know Giannis is probably one of the most unstoppable players as far as getting to the rim. But when we incorporated jump shot, and when we talk about dribbling the ball, and we talk about, breaking down a defender, Chris Middleton was the only person on that team that was able to do that. The key to the Bucks championship window right now is Chris Middleton going to be able to buy in? And what does buy-in mean for him? That's another thing that nobody ever really talks about. Buy-in looks different for different people. Buying in looks different for different people. Damian Lillard buying in looks completely different than Giannis buying in. Damian Lillard buying in looks completely different than Chris Middleton buying in. Chris Middleton is now so another thing that people don't understand is when people say that you're a second or third option, what exactly that means. Obviously, it means that if there's a last second play, the first option is obviously the best player or the best shooter or whatever. A second option, it's tiers from there. But on a bigger scale, the first option usually gets the most shots. If you want to talk about Golden State, Steph Curry is the first option. He gets the most shots. Nobody trips that the first option takes as many shots because they understand how good of a player that person is. On the Milwaukee Bucks, Damian Lillard is the first option at this point. The second option still takes a bunch of shots, but not as much. And another thing that people don't really understand is the second option's shots kind of get criticized a little more, not as much, but a little more as the first option. If you want to go back to the Golden State comparison, Klay Thompson is the second option. The other night, and we're going to talk about this in a second, but the other night, they played Phoenix. Steph Curry went like 6 for 23. Nobody talks about it. You know what they talk about? Klay Thompson went like 6 for 18 or 3 for 18. It's like, yo, Klay Thompson shot them out the game, you know? The second option takes not as many shots, but is looked to be, if the first option is not going well, the second option, you take it. Third option is pretty much, hey, we need you when we need you. Be ready when we need you. Chris Middleton has never done that. He's never been that, especially for this Milwaukee Bucks team. And he's going to need to do that. There's going to be nights where you only get Chris Middleton is used to getting maybe 20 to 24 shots a game. Now that number is probably going to go down to 10 to 12. And as a mindset, as a rhythm thing, that affects players. And do not get it twisted. I don't care how good Damian Lillard is. I don't care how good Giannis Antetokounmpo is. While, yes, they're important, they need Chris Middleton to buy in to ultimately win a championship. And it looked like, obviously, he bought in game one, but we need to see for the duration of the season. But what I needed to see was how Damian Lillard... The thoughts that I thought was going... Let me see this. What I thought was going to happen is exactly what happened. When we looked at that Milwaukee Bucks team, they looked drastically different than any iteration of the Bucks we've seen with Giannis. Look, the floor was so wide open for Giannis. They are probably going to be the best pick and roll tandem we've seen. And it kind of looked like, surprisingly, it looked like they already had chemistry. That's why I said the perfect pairing for Giannis is Damian Lillard. Well, I thought it was number two. Number one would be Steph. But Damian Lillard is the perfect type of player to play alongside Giannis. And we saw it game one. There was absolutely no drop-off from either one. In fact, Damian Lillard looks like... he looks better than he's ever looked in game one. Again, this is just week one. But exactly what I thought things were going to look like is exactly what they look like. Now, things can change, obviously, but right now, from what we saw week one, there is two clear-cut teams in the East. Oh, man, you stayed to the end of the video. I appreciate you. If you like what you saw, be sure to hit that subscribe button so you'll never miss any content from your boy. You can also go back and watch past episodes, past clips, and don't forget that the Unpopular Podcast, new episodes drop every Wednesday and Saturday. Appreciate you.